So, what happens when one of the biggest pop stars on the planet has a father who is an absolute legend in his own country, but she's never even met him? It sounds wild, right? Well, today we're diving deep into the very public and very complicated story of Doja Cat and her father, Dumasani Dlamini. All right, so picture this. The stage is set. Doja Cat arrives in South Africa, the country where her father was born, for a major performance. This is a huge deal, a homecoming of sorts. But instead of some tearful, heartfelt reunion, something totally different and way weirder goes down. While she's on a live stream, Doja Cat just casually drops this bombshell. Her father, who lives right there in the country she's touring, isn't coming to her show. And the reason he gives? Apparently she doesn't text him enough. But trust me, the details of their text exchange are where this story takes a truly bizarre turn. And here's the play-by-play of what happened. She sends him a ticket link. He says he's too busy. So what does she do? She sends him a link to gay porn, but makes it look like the ticket link. His response is just pure confusion, worrying that he's being scammed. It's this provocative, almost darkly funny moment that just perfectly shows how incredibly disconnected they really are. Of course, a weird text exchange like this between two incredibly famous people was never going to stay private for long. In fact, this one little interaction became the spark that lit a massive media firestorm. And who brings it all out into the open? Doja Cat herself. She retells the whole story online, laughing about it. Now, for her, it might have just been a moment of dark humor to cope, but for the internet, it was a viral spectacle that turned a really painful family dynamic into global entertainment. And with that viral clip came swift, and I mean swift, public judgment. It cemented this narrative that had been bubbling under the surface for years, that Dumasani Dlamini was a deadbeat dad. That label just stuck, and he was instantly slammed with criticism based entirely on his daughter's side of the story. But, like with any big family conflict, there's always more than one side to the story. After all that backlash, Dumasani Dlamini came forward with his own version of events, and suddenly we had a classic case of he said, she said playing out on a global stage. So here is the absolute core of their disagreement. For years, Doja Cat has been on record saying she doesn't know her father, that he was just never around. But his defense, he claims he never left his kids, and that outside forces, and he's pointing directly at Doja Cat's mother, stopped him from ever having a relationship with them. And his defense is incredibly specific and very racially charged. He straight up blames Doja Cat's mother, a white Jewish American woman, for brainwashing their daughter. And then he brings up his most famous work, the musical Serafina, claiming that the money he made from that legendary anti-apartheid story was what he used to support his kids in America. So he's not just defending himself as a dad, he's framing this whole thing as a cultural and financial battle. So that reference to Serafina is absolutely crucial. To really get what's going on here, you have to understand who Dumasani Dlamini is to his country, because his public legacy is completely at odds with his daughter's private experience. See, Dumasani Dlamini isn't just some actor. He's a true cultural figure in South Africa. He starred in Serafina, a globally famous story about student resistance during apartheid. To so many people, he's part of this heroic, artistic movement that shined a light on his country's struggle. To many, he is a hero. And this view of him isn't just a local thing. Years ago, when Doja Cat met her father's Serafina co-star, the one and only Whoopi Goldberg, this was Whoopi's immediate reaction. Based on her professional experience with him, he was simply a great man, a perception that Doja Cat obviously did not share. And this right here illustrates the heart of the paradox so perfectly. Doja Cat's response is just devastatingly simple and powerful. The fact that her father's famous colleague has met him, worked with him, and thinks he's great, while she, his own child, has never had that chance, well, that's the central tragedy of this whole story. So this brings everything together. How can somebody be a celebrated public hero to millions, a great man to his colleagues, and at the same time a profound, painful absence to his own child? This is what we're calling the great man paradox. I mean, this is so much more than just a family squabble, right? You've got the insane pressure of global fame making every single word a headline. You have social media that turns narratives into weapons. You have the literal physical distance of international borders acting as a real barrier. And at the very heart of it all is that core conflict, the public hero versus the private parent. And here's really the biggest takeaway. The human experience is messy, and it is complicated enough for all of this to be true at the exact same time. Dumasani Dlamini can be a cultural icon whose art meant the world to his country, and he can also be the father his daughter says she never knew. One of those truths doesn't just cancel out the other one. Which leaves us all with this final, really difficult question to chew on. For the people a public figure disappoints the most, their own family, can a celebrated public legacy ever make up for a private failure? It's a paradox that has no easy answer. Thanks for joining us.